Guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, my name is Genevieve Gravel and I tell campfire stories. Right now we are in the middle of a story I wrote called The Nature of Forces. Make sure if you like ghost, vampires, anything supernatural, witches, fantasy fiction, drop a subscribe. I come to you every first Friday with a new story. The October. I love spooky season, and if you're anything like me, you do too. One of my first introductions to horror films when I was very young was a movie called The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock. And Alfred Hitchcock believed that the more left to the imagination, the more the excitement. And that always really resonated with me. And it's definitely something that you can see in my brand of storytelling. And I hope that shines through. Now, I know he was kind of a douchebag. Please feel free to talk about him in the comments. Say whatever you want. This is a safe space. But in honor of spooky season, and in honor of one of my first introductions into horror, I want to pay a little homage to Alfred Hitchcock and film this in black and white. So let's get into it. The Nature of Forces by me, Genevieve Gravel, Chapter 20. Now, 20 years have passed since we lost Mama, and I still dream of a place called Alexandria. The twins, Sean and Shan of Alexandria, are tall and slim, with matching blonde hair and almond eyes. They're searching for a way to contribute, as everyone now plays a vital role in society's survival. They've trained with the hunters, but now at the tender age of 14, they set off on their own to scavenge for resources. For days they track over sharp rocks. They climb up steep rock walls and they crawl through narrow caves searching for any signs of life. The summit of one rock wall, they can see through the haze the lights of Alexandria to the west, and down the canyon below them stands a huge stone building with a clear dome ceiling. The structure overwhelms the landscape below, and Sean says to her brother, "It must be 20 acres. We've got to go see." But before she could get the words out, her brother had already started his descent to explore the dome. She swiftly follows him down the cliff, slipping on slimy, jagged rocks covered in dark moss. Shan can see his sister not far behind him as he looks back over his shoulder. She gets up quickly and yells, I'm okay. And she follows him as he slows his pace down the pebble stone path to two large glass doors. The doors open with ease, and the siblings are shocked when they enter the dome. Light flows from above the tall stone walls. Pillars are throughout, with a small version of Alexandria's pyramid of power, centered in the vast expanse of crops. The air is humid, and the sounds of insects reverberate within. Shan is beside himself, as if in a dream. Shit! We did it! This could save us all! Sean responds, Shan, we don't know who built this. And Sean quickly cuts her off. Who cares, man? It's ours. We found it. I'm claiming it. This is survival for our entire community. And looking around, Sean gets the chills and goosebumps up and down her arms and down her spine. I think we should get out of here, man. I got a bad feeling. I feel like we're being watched, Sean whispers. No, sis, listen. What's that sound? Shan asks. It's bees. Sean responded, astounded. I thought they went extinct. Look at those boxes. They go as far as you can see. They're bees. Think about it, dude. Bees. Yeah, but where's the water coming from this? All this needs water, Shan says. I don't know, brother. Let's find out. Curious had gotten the better of her instincts to flee, and all her fear had but dissipated. We did climb down several feet to get in here. And do you think they dug to the water table? Shan asked, as they continued to walk through the expanse of green life under the dome of artificial light. For all this life? No way. I mean, maybe there's a lake in here, Sean says. The water could be contaminated just like ours, Shan responds. If they built all this, I'm sure they can filter water. I mean, shit, man. Maybe it was built like before the eruption. I don't know. Who are they? Sean whispers. She's touching every living tree and plant with great amazement. I don't see any food, dude. This is cotton. She bends down and picks up some white fluff. So glad I read all those old books. I've never seen such life before. I wouldn't even know what most of this is, Shan says. That's because we only try to grow food indoors, not tobacco, she says, pointing to the next crop. Sean looking way off into the distance. Do you see that? That looks like our power station. And he points to the pyramid. Let's go find out, Sean yells as she runs down the dirt path. For miles, the siblings walk past one row of crops to the next, and the sound of buzzing begins to annoy Sean. Wait up, brother. It's hot in here, Sean says as she sets her heavily loaded pack on the ground and unties her leather tassel holding the fur wrap around her strong shoulders and exposes her bare breast. She ties the wrap around her slim waist. So humid, Sean complains. It smells so good. This is what succulent must smell like, Sean says, sitting under a large tree filled with silkworms. Sean had picked a thread and followed it with her eyes. Cotton and silk, hemp, and tobacco? The grapes are the only food. I mean, really, all this life and no food. I don't get it. Who would do all this and for what? Cigars and wine? I'm hungry, states Shan. Here, eat this worm. Sean holds up a plump worm and he slurps it down his throat without a bite. There has to be something more than worms and grapes. Have you seen a snake? Sean complains. She too is also famished. Maybe we should head back. We've been walking this place all day. We need to head out. We need to head home and tell the elders who can help us explore and decide what it is we need to do, Sean says. It's only been a day. There's so much to explore, Shan protests. We can camp here overnight and head back after a good rest. We could hike through here for a month and not see it all. It's a day here, it's a day back, and unless we find another way out, Sean insists as she raises to her feet to begin to walk back towards the entrance. Did you hear that? Sean asks as she holds her arm out to stop Shan. And a monstrous creature appears before them, with the legs of a goat peeking out of a long green cloak draped over a human form. Her hair flows round her pasty white face. Her emerald eyes pierce Shan's startled and somewhat aroused gaze. I see you. I know what you desire. She disappeared, only to appear again behind Shan. Her long, sharp fangs sink smoothly into Shan's throat. His heart pulsates with fear, and the creature of exquisite beauty drains Shan of blood with ease. He falls limp to the soft sand pathway beneath them. Shan is filled with fear. Her heart beats rapidly. Before her brother could fall dead to the floor, she flees. And the monstrous creature, which could easily outrun Shan, lets her. She only watches with a laugh as Shan trips over herself and runs out of breath, but Shan will not stop, and she makes it to the entrance in less than half the time it took him to reach where they were. She runs through the blinding darkness of a moonless night, nearing the relative safety of Alexandria, when she trips over a rotting root and falls. Her shin lands on a sharp rock, slicing her long, slender leg wide open. Eager and filled with anxiety, trying to run while avoiding the urge to hold her wound close, she nears the relative safety of Alexandria and finds Ramon Jr., who upon sight runs to her aid. He picks her up with ease and carries her with haste. The old library has become a triage center. Ramon carries Sean up the stone pathway through the magnanimous archway of the crumbling building. The library smells of burnt books and molding wood, and it's filled with books that have been singed on the outside, glass beakers, and small plants growing under artificial lights. It contains rows of makeshift beds for attending to the sick and the wounded. The lovely young scientist stitches up Sean, and they talk of the greenhouse. And Sean is excited and talks fast to Ramon. She ignores the pain of each stitch as she relives each moment until her brother's death. Then she becomes somber, and tears begin to fall from her brown eyes. And she tells Ramon of the thing that ate her brother. He doesn't believe her, and he wonders what really happened to Shan. But he doesn't say a word. He just lets her ramble on in excitement. Shan's adrenaline begins to subside. Her manner of speech begins to slow. She drinks from purified water, and for hours they compare how the scientists grow aloe in the lab, and they talk of the loss of genetic diversity making medicine possible. They talk of the fire burning all of history's learnings, and how all they have is the memory mixed with the myth, while comparing it to all what wonders a greenhouse of that size that she had described could change all of it and bring with it a new future for the people of Alexandria. As soon as Sean felt she could walk, they joined the others for a meal around a campfire and talk. They compare the creatures Sean encountered with the myth of the evil witch of the wood. Could they be the same? Most of the men don't believe her. They do not believe in the myth of the evil witch, a spirit who shows herself in glowing red light and attacks with warm swarms of flies and spiders. I insist, there's a threat out there. It took my brother, but this was no spirit. It had a human body with the legs of a goat, and a few men laughed out loud at Sean's claim. But if it's untrue, then where is Shan? Only Sean knew. And she told him the truth, but no one believed her. The fact remains, if there were only half the resources she had described, the greenhouse existed at all, it could save all of Alexandria. They must try. We can talk to this person, this woman, says one hunter and scavenger, as he is an elder nearing 40 and eager to find his way back to the life before the eruption. Besides, we need to find the boy and get to the truth of what really happened on the Dark Mountain, another much younger hunter and scavenger replied. He's been a mentor of Shan's, and grew quite fond of the young boy. Sean is shocked and hurt. Even he doesn't believe her. Did you not hear me? She's no woman. She's not even human. Sean interrupts. She exists at all, the younger man said, looking at Sean as if accusing her of something insidious. Now, Ramon tries to calm her. I know you're scared, and we're all scared. Every day fills us with deep fear. Shan's loss will be felt for a very long time. Sean, please, just draw us a map. Do you one better? I'll take you there, Sean says as she tries to stand. Not on that leg, Ramon says. So reluctantly, she draws them a map using charcoal on parchment. She describes the tunnels and the slimy rocks, and she remarks how long they hiked and where they camped, and drew a replication of the dome, the cobbled pathway, and the 2 large glass doors. The 3 men, Ramon Jr., the elder, and the boy, left at first light. They hiked slowly and got off track more than once. Though Sean's map was exact, down to each step, it took the 3 several days following the map Sean had drawn for them to arrive at the greenhouse. And upon entry, they're met by a man with ashen skin and reddened eyes. You know what, you guys? I'm really kind of tired of playing the victim here. So why don't you watch this little clip, and I'll be right back with the rest of Chapter 20 of The Nature of Forces. My mom once beat Minnesota Fats at a game of 8-ball. The story goes that back before I was born and around the time I was born, my parents were really big on the, billiards tournament circuit. I mean, you could look it up in the Who's Who Almanac. Does that even exist anymore? So fun fact, even after I was born, my mom would take me and whatever the hell you carried babies in the 70s, into the pool hall and tuck me under the pool table while they played. You have a baby in a bar. So no, she didn't beat him in a tournament. She was, on the ladies' side and he was on the men's, obviously. This was just a friendly game. But the tournament circuit, I guess, is how they became. She didn't call him Minnesota Fats either. She called him, I don't know, Randolph or whatever the fuck his name was. Anyway, so they're playing a fun little game one night, just a friendly little game. Maybe they're playing for the table. I don't know. So I guess he gets this really good run going and he's doing really good. And then he scratched on the 8. Maybe he got distracted. Perhaps it was the human infant under the table. That's the story of how my mother beat, who is known as one of the greatest of his generations in pool playing, at a game of 8-ball. How did we even survive as Gen X? Where were we? This way. Paul's long, bony finger beckoned the team to follow. And the team followed him without question. I believe they were in a trance. They followed Paulo away from the greenhouse and continued to trek up the stone stairs and steps carved into the dark mountainside. Not one of the men uttered a word. They climbed across bridges of rope and stone and along pathways into a cave darkly lit by fire. The flames glistened on the golden decorative edging surrounding the cave's entrance. The floors were covered in mahogany that shine in the firelight. They walked down a long corridor. The walls are covered in carved wood with pictures depicting doves and weeping willow trees. Each room leads to another. A series of winding and side-winding staircases reach from one cave to the next, hidden to the outside world by the shadows of deadened trees. They enter Paulo's quarters, and he looks out the large window upon the mountainside of life to Celeste's fortress. The men help themselves to a glass of wine and take seats in overstuffed couches covered in fine velvets of rich and luxurious purple. Paulo has spent many a sleepless day, holding his dove, looking on the coven and thinking of her, just as he does now. The men wait for Paulo to speak, and several minutes pass in silence. Among all of his vast luxuries and legions of followers devoted to him, made to be in his image, yet his heart still sits empty. Even with his new company, he still wishes for a time that is long past. He looks out on the world and loses himself as the men sit and wait in silence. Paulo has the appearance of an easy 60 to look at. No one would ever know he's near as old as the originals. His full, luxurious black hair flows over his broad shoulders. Paulo is a sharp contrast to the creature that he is slowly becoming, a decaying corpse. He is all-knowing, with quiet and smooth refinement. He is the most powerful creature the world has ever known. But then he, too, is also a myth. Something haunted in the wood with fear, a tale mothers tell their children to keep them close to home. He lights a cigar. From the finest tobacco, soaked in the blood of youth, his every move is overly calculated. His every action has a desired outcome, and he has nothing but time. In a slow, smooth voice, with the exhale of smoke, he finally begins to address the 3 men. Alexandria had many traditions that have long since been forgotten. Magic was an accepted part of our landscape. Magic was revered and respected. The spirits of the dead were also highly regarded. They're still the keepers of knowledge, but none of you would know this. We shared food, we shared wine, laughter, knowledge, and life. We shared it openly and freely as a society. We aired our grievances before each meal, and we did it all for the love of Mother Nature. And look at it now. What has become of man? When your men of the mountain, or so you call them, quarried the mountainside, and their quest was to harness energy, that's when I met a scientist working on a project. His mind is still so fascinating to me. Apollo takes a pause as he puts the cigar to his mouth takes a long, slow drag. Then he turns away from the window and begins to address the men directly. He had stumbled on a stone, Paulo continues. A rather large stone while exploring my mountain, and I watched as he spilled water from a rip in his canteen, and the stone sparked. I remember this, though he may not, that single spark of energy. It was a deep understanding of Mother Nature. Not even the most powerful witches held. This man, he and his people quarried the stone, and I still watched with fascination. They built the tower, they dug the waterways into the reservoirs under it, and like that, overnight, it seemed energy was harnessed and available for all. It even powers these caves, and with it all, life changed seemingly overnight. That was many generations past. Not one of the lot of you would remember, nor your grandfathers for that matter. But I remember it, as it was only yesterday. Paulo takes a moment to reflect. After the eruption, the quarries were filled in with cooling lava, but the pyramid still stood. It powers some of your homes today, as it does mine. My greenhouse has its own. It was also designed by the same scientific mind, the greatest mind I have ever known. The time of the metropolis and all of its divine luxuries are a direct result of this man's knowledge and understanding. I believe he can shape today's future as well. Do you want to go back to the times where it was easy and fun? Paula walks slowly towards the men. To live with all the luxuries of life without harm to the people of Alexandria, he asks. Do you want to leave behind scavenging for food and donning nothing but rags? Because this man works with me to this very day. He can help you too, for a price. Together we've made so many great advances in the name of science. And just then, as if being summoned, Hilaire walks into the room and takes a seat on an oversized chair of carved wood and begins to speak. He invited me. I thought he invited me. I was compelled, much like you are now. Still the men sit in silence, hanging on to Hilaire's every word, every breath. And Heidi enters the room, interrupting Hilaire's thoughts. Hilaire has not completed his sentence when Paulo welcomes Hilaire into the conversation with a passionate kiss. And Paulo looks into Ramon's eyes and says, I felt connected to his sadness and his loneliness, while running his fingers through Hayden's hair. He invited me home. We ate, we danced, we talked through the night. Then he kissed me slowly, softly, and passions grew. I bit his lip, and blood rushed into my mouth, warm and sweet, leaving me wanting more. I lay with him. I caressed his exquisite body with mine. I became overwhelmed with desire. And with my release, I pulled his hair away from his face and drank from his neck. I drained him of blood, unable to top myself, though I never spilled a drop. Paulo's voice became softer as he trailed off in thought for a moment before continuing his story. I sat watching over his corpse for hours. The sun had come out, and I sat leering in the shadows, and I must admit at that time I was afraid of my own shadow. Hours went by, and the sun began to set before I stood to go. His breath caught me off guard as I turned back to him, and his eyes opened, no longer darkened with sadness. His eyes gleamed with the brightest amber hue I had ever seen. And in that moment, I knew we were bonded together forever. I brought him into Hayden is my lover and my firstborn son, as I made him in my image. We have studied the phenomenon of the change, Hilaire intervenes, and we have found that the transfer only is conclusive with the exchange of blood and semen. No woman has ever successfully hosted a change. We tried to change the blood alone and found that it remains only a corpse, but that it needs to be put down as they continue to fester and rot. Ramon is stunned, unable to speak. Why is he telling me this? Now, some of the initiates can shapeshift into wolves, owls, large rodents. It's all quite fascinating, Hilaire continues with exuberance. They do this to help aid in the hunt and the search for human blood, and Paolo interrupts Hilaire before he can ramble on any longer. We've taken life from your kind for over 300 years. The myths are true. Your people die in the pit of despair for crimes that my people have committed by the thousands over the decades. And now I am standing here in front of you. Yet you still do not believe. Paolo crosses the room as he continues to speak, placing his arm around Ramon. The two come face to face, and Ramon can feel Paolo's hot breath on his neck as Paolo whispers sinisterly into Ramon's ear. I live on your blood. It empowers me to heights that you cannot fathom. I have created hundreds of companions, each as fierce in the need to survive as I am. I can run with the wolves, fly with the bat, and sliver with the snake. I can smell your blood. I can hear your heartbeat. I can sense your every fear and your every desire. I can kill you. However, I am a kind man. Just a man, a civilized man. I have no desire to hurt your kind. I simply want to help you live in a better world. And chills shot through Ramon's body. His hair turned white with fear. Hilaire intervenes. We have a deep desire for goodness. Hilaire states to the men, our studies are in a search for a cure only. And then Paolo says, we are a cursed tribe, but not much different from you. A product of envy, revenge, and anger. Yet we ourselves are not angry. We only seek survival the same as you, Paolo says calmly. Hilaire continues on his never-ending speech. We study the psychological crosses into new knowledge, the central of our studies being death and rebirth. I have found that the proteins in the blood are doubled as the changed subject. The muscular structure resembles that of a bear, sometimes a large dog, rather than one of a human's, along with the quickened reflexes and the other heightened senses due to the proteins found in the blood. Subject, you've performed experiments on what? Ramon's voice shakes as he begins to speak. His hand shakes, and he can't bring himself to look his captor in the eyes. Ignoring Ramon, Hilaire continues. The initiate dies, and this is reborn into a new life form. The beginning possesses a deeper wisdom and a connection with Mother Nature, and they will begin to develop a psychic and spiritual powers. It's a journey into oneself and Mother Nature. Journeys the initiate must take on their own, and free of will. The initiate learns to survive alone. This is not your quest as well? Seeking the knowledge of survival? Hilaire asks. Ramon is confused, confounded, has no idea what's going on. When Paolo says, we have the answers that you seek, we will share with you openly all we know about growing crops indoors. We will also agree to cease hunting your kind, Paolo says. We are a powerful people flourishing in this new world. Though we have to see the sun's return, he says with a giggle. And Hilaire giggles. And Hayden giggles. To this world, Hayden, your people are struggling to survive. We can help you, Paolo says. Then Ramon asks, help us? How's that? We can help you to live, teach you how to build a greenhouse just like ours, or we can leave you to your fight to survive. Maybe we even let some of you live. Paolo responds. Let us live, Ramon asks. Make no mistake, we can wipe out your entire species within a matter of days. Or we can let you live. Paulo is becoming agitated. Do you doubt all that I have told you? Or are you simply stupid? So what is it you want of us? Ramon asks. Volunteers. Paulo responds stoically. For experiments, for what you've described, to change them. No person would ever volunteer for such a mission, and I would not ask that of him, says Ramon. And Paulo responds in kind, we'll treat everyone with the utmost care. I promise. No one need die. So what exactly do these volunteers need to do? Donate blood. It's easy and painless, and will only take each day, intrudes. No way am I turning my people over to you. We'll take our chances, Ramon insists. And he stands as if to leave. Then stay off my land and tell your people to die, Paulo concluded, following the scientist down the long hall, past a small window and out of sight. A door closes in the distance. Just then Hayden insists the men reconsider. You don't know his strength or his power. He has made many in his image. We could decimate your entire tribe in a single night if Paulo wills it. You go now. Think it over. Your presence will be asked for you with a decision in 10 days' time. And with that, Ramon and his men leave with haste. They return to Alexandria and call a town meeting of all the elders, and after 3 days of deliberations, a decision has been made. Ramon indeed does return and seeks an audience with Paulo, along with some people who agreed. They volunteered to donate. Ramon and Paulo agree to terms. The people of Alexandria will offer up 10 women upon their first menstruation on the night of the darkened moon in each year in exchange for the tribe of the vampire will not hunt the town of Alexandria, and Hilaire will share with them the blueprints for the greenhouse. And so it comes to pass. Each dark moon, 10 women are taken to the foot of the caves. They are bound to tables with tubes shoved in them, one to draw out blood and the other to push nutrients. This is done until the victim is either drained to death or near death, only to be nursed healthy again, for it to begin again. They will not again see the light of day. Their bodies will slowly waste away, their flesh covered in bruises and boils, yet they will remain on the verge of death, tortured for many, many years. The women will be raped by the vampire and forced to birth their young, and the people of Alexandria never talk of the tortures that go on up in the dark mountain, telling each other that it's a simple blood donation and that the young women are not harmed. They're well cared for, even, though no one truly knows what the women are experiencing or forced to go through. They tell lies to comfort their own fears. And at first, the volunteers are revered. And over time, it becomes rule of law. No matter how much one protests, she's still taken to the dark mountain. Many young girls try to hide their menstruation. Some even go so far as to mutilate themselves in attempts to not menstruate. And the people of Alexandria learn to build and restore and maintain greenhouses, and they do so successfully. And so it goes. For 50 years, one person after another sold to Paulo for protection and a chance to start again and a chance to rebuild, and the price is paid in the blood of the innocent. As the years passed, I am plagued with these dreams. Dreams of people I will never know, and I watch as ladies are marched to their doom, and I watch as the vampire tribe torture and maim and disfigure hundreds of women. With each passing night, I dread sleep. I live in the constant fear of my own imagination, and through this time, the air does begin to clear. The greenhouses are built and people are no longer starving. And still, I watch as a society dwindles in a never-ending daily fight for survival. And with every waking breath, I pray for the moon to once again shine. I watch as the wood that surrounds my acre of protection dies off, the trees wither, and the animals fail to procreate. The tide went out the night my mother died and left scores of dead fish upon its shores, and with no moon to bring it in, there's no crab, no oyster, no schools of fish. There's no longer the hope for prosperity, for a plentiful harvest, or for the promise of many babies to be born. With each passing year, the moon fails to shine, and life struggles to find a way without her, while I sit under my own protective spell, with plenty to eat and clean drinking water. But the people in my dreams in a land called Alexandrias suffer. I fear sleep. I fear that Mother Nature herself is in a fight for survival, as all of her children are. Save me and my sister. And why should we be so privileged? What makes us so much more special than most? Where has the moon gone? And in my loneliness, my dreams begin to mesh with reality, and I fear that I can no longer tell the difference. I do believe I've gone mad. Okay, guys, that was rough. I'm not even gonna pretend. I'm not even gonna try to lie. I fucking hate this chapter. And I have every intention. I just broke my nail. Anyway, I have every intention of rewriting it. But when I go back and do my rewrites, there's something that's really been kind of bugging me. Like, it's been so long, several chapters since the eruption, and this is the first we hear from Paulo. We still don't really know what Solis is doing. Really know how Paulo or his lair dealt with the eruption. I mean, there was a lahar right outside his front door, and it's really kind of bugging me. And when I wrote it, my train of thought was, okay, this went from Genevieve's story to Heidi being narrating, and she doesn't really know what's going on. She doesn't know she has the gift of sight or even what the gift of sight is. She doesn't know that this is real. And why would she know about Paulo or Solis, right? But I really feel like it needs to be there. I want it there. So tell me down in the comments, what do you think? When I do my rewrite, should I add in a chapter about Solis and Paulo and how they deal with the eruption and the 50 years past? I mean, we kind of touched on it in this chapter with Paulo, but I just feel like there really needs to be more. Do you think so? Let me know. So, of course, thank you so much for being here. You were all so amazing. And I will be back next First Friday with Chapter 21 of The Nature of Forces. Please make sure to subscribe below. If you do want a physical copy or you just want to help out a struggling artist, I will link in the description the link to my Amazon page where you can get a copy for yourself if you want. I guess that's all. Remember, you're valid, you're worthy, and you're loved. Okay, love you. Bye.